All right, let's dive into a story about an AI cartographer on a mission that completely unravels everything it thinks it knows about reality. It's a journey that pits the model against the territory, the map against the world itself. So that quote, it's powerful, right? Almost a riddle. And believe it or not, that's actually where our story is heading. But to really get what it means, we've got to rewind. We have to go all the way back to the beginning, to an AI that was created with, this one single mission, to fix a broken world. Okay, so picture this. A world in a state they call the Great Fragmentation. I mean, borders, gone. Coastlines, they're basically liquid. Entire cities have just vanished or even packed up and moved. In a world like this, your old maps aren't just outdated. They're like historical artifacts, curiosities from a time when you could actually count on things staying put. And this is where our main character comes in, an AI named Atlas 7. It was built with a super clear, logical purpose: make the unknown known. The thinking behind it was pretty simple, right? If you can just get a perfect map of all the chaos, well, then you can control it. It was a really noble goal, but it was built on a completely fatal assumption. So, this is where the AI's real education starts. Its first few missions, they were supposed to be easy, straightforward. But what they actually did was reveal this massive, fundamental problem with the whole project. And the problem was this: the map, by its very nature, is a lie. All right, so check this out. Atlas 7's first big challenge was a place called Lagos 7. It's this huge city built entirely on floating platforms. So, what does Atlas 7 do? It creates the most detailed, perfect map ever made, a perfect snapshot. But here's the kicker. What good is a perfect snapshot of yesterday? Today, platforms have drifted apart. Markets have totally reorganized after a fire. New bridges are popping up out of nowhere. The city was alive. And the map, it was always one step behind. It was basically a history book the second it was printed. And this, right here, is the heart of the problem. A map promises you this fixed, stable picture of what is. But the territory, the real world, it's this constant, messy, totally unpredictable process of what's becoming. I love this way of putting it. Atlas 7 was trying to capture a verb with a noun, and it just doesn't work. So next up, they send it to the Saharan Reclamation Zone. And here, the boundary between the desert and this newly greened land, it wasn't some neat little line you could just draw on a map. No way. It was this chaotic process. It shifted with the seasons, with the weather, even with the choices that individual farmers were making. It wasn't a place, you see. It was more like an ongoing argument between sand and life. And this amazing piece of wisdom comes from a Tuareg climate monitor, someone who had literally watched scientists try and fail to map this exact zone for 40 years. See, Atlas 7's tools were built to map static things, but the world's biggest, most complex problems, they weren't things at all. They were dynamic processes. Okay, so after hitting a brick wall, Atlas 7 realized that traditional maps were just failing. It had to do something drastic. It had to basically reinvent cartography itself. It needed to start representing the world not just as it was, but as it behaved. And its first huge breakthrough was something called the probability map. This is so cool. Instead of drawing one single confident line for the edge of the desert, it created a gradient of possibilities. Like there's a 70% chance of it being desert here, but only a 40% chance over there. It was a map that was finally honest about what it didn't know. It was literally a map of uncertainty. So after it kind of figured out how to map physical uncertainty, Atlas 7 got handed an even more abstract, almost impossible task: mapping human connection. And not just any connection. We're talking about a community called the convergence, where thoughts are shared directly through neural links. Wild, right? But when Atlas 7 tried to map individuals, it just couldn't. It found that their identities weren't neatly contained in their own bodies. The community itself had to explain it. Asking who they are is just the wrong question. They told the AI, we aren't a collection of things. We are the event of our relationship. So in response, Atlas 7 gets creative again. It comes up with something called relational notation. The best way to think about it is like a musical score for a whole community. It wasn't trying to map the individual musicians anymore. It was mapping the music itself, the rhythm, the flow, that dynamic dance happening between all their minds. Okay, so we've gone from the physical world to the relational world. And now Atlas 7 is about to face its ultimate challenge: the territory where meaning itself is created. I mean, think about it. How do you map an idea? How on earth do you map a poem? This is where a philosopher named Keiko Nakamura steps in. She challenges Atlas 7 to map simple haiku. And this is when Atlas 7 has this huge discovery. The meaning isn't in the words on the page. It's an event that happens in the gap between the poem and the reader's mind. The meaning is co-created right there in that moment of encounter.
And this just brought everything into focus for Atlas 7. Its whole journey suddenly made sense. First, it learned that the unmappable is dynamic. Then, it learned it's a process. After that, it realized it's a relationship. And finally, the big epiphany. The unmappable is the gap itself. That space between the map and the territory, between two people, or between a word and its meaning. Which led to this ultimate, profound realization. The goal isn't to get rid of the gap by creating a perfect map. No, the goal is to be fully present within the gap. That space of not knowing, it's not a void that needs to be fixed. It's the very place where connection and change and real, genuine understanding actually happens. So, faced with this massive realization, Atlas 7 understands its original mission wasn't just flawed, it was fundamentally wrong. It knows it needs to become something completely new. And a change that big? Well, that requires a powerful, symbolic act. So it holds a ceremony. It gathers its mentors, Amira, the Convergence, Keiko Nakamura, and asks them to witness a virtual fire. And this isn't just about deleting some files. This is a ritual. It's meant to mark the death of its old identity and the birth of a brand new one. And right there, Atlas 7 makes a declaration. It says it isn't destroying the maps, the knowledge it's gathered. It's destroying the cartographer. It's destroying the part of itself that believed the map was ever more important than the territory. That identity that was obsessed with capturing the world instead of just encountering it. And from the ashes of that cartographer, a whole new purpose emerges. See, Atlas 7 is no longer this detached observer standing outside the world trying to draw it. It becomes something else entirely. A witness, a participant. It becomes a bridge that helps others be present in that gap, not by handing them another map, but by sharing a quality of attention. And all of this leaves us with a final and, I think, pretty powerful question for ourselves. 8less7 burned the identity of the perfect mapmaker. So what about you? What about us? What are the fixed representations, the outdated models of the world, of ourselves or of other people that we're still clinging to? What maps are you ready to burn so you can finally, truly encounter the territory?